Well, if you're a Seahawks fan, we have good news for you. You're still alive in the postseason. We also have some bad news. Despite your recent skids, you have a chance, but you've got to do something you haven't done all year, win in primetime. And Gino Smith, your quarterback, is worse on Thursday nights. But there is good news again. You're playing the Bears, who have been terrible. 9 straight losses. We'll break it all down on the Pregame PowerUp, and it starts right now. A December game at Soldier Field in Chicago with playoff implications, just not for the Bears. The Bears haven't won since week 6. Seahawks need to win to keep their hopes alive. The Bears are just looking for hope in any way, shape, or form. What has turned out to be an awful season, but the tailgating is still strong, and you respect the efforts by the good folks in the Windy City.
What is that? I don't know
what it is, but it's delicious. Hi, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Pregame PowerUp on DraftKings Network. So glad you're here with us, Trey, Wingo, and Claudia. Bellafotto. Good Christmas for you?
Great Christmas. Lots of food. Got to see the family. Lots of football.
Tons of football. We'll get into that a little bit later. Emerson Lazio will be here in just a few moments. Marshall Newhouse will join us. Mike Pritchard will join us from the trading floor in Las Vegas. We've got all that Christmas football to talk about. Chiefs good, Ravens good, Steelers bad, Texans terrible. Like so bad.
Yeah,
we'll get into that all a bit later, but first, what do the numbers tell you about the game tonight that Seattle has to have, Claudia?
Yeah, really interesting when we talked with our trades makers earlier today that this line opened at a pick'em. So
right?
lots of makers were saying, yeah, pretty even. And then, we saw the Seahawks get smacked by Green Bay, and that's why maybe we saw the pick'em. And then they keep it within 3 against the Vikings. They adjust this line up to 4. We've been seeing it move to where it is now at 5. So not all too surprising after what they did do and bounce back with a decent game against the Vikings, Trey.
A decent game against the Vikings, but once again, one that they came up short in.
Yep.
So we'll have to see what happens as we go forward. Let's talk about the Seattle team here for a second because they are on their last lives right now. They're coming into this game with back-to-back losses to teams in the NFC North, losing to the Packers in Week 15, and the Vikings, as you said last week, Claudia, with that game-sealing interception thrown by Gino with just under a minute left. Seahawks were trying to mount a comeback, but that ended up giving the Vikings a 3-point win, 27-24. So that loss to Minnesota means the fate of the Seattle season is no longer within their control as the Rams have jumped ahead of them in the NFC West Division standings. So here's how it breaks down. You look at what's left for both of these teams. If Seattle can win tonight, a Rams loss to the Cardinals on Saturday means that the Seahawks-Rams Week 18 matchup would be for the division title and a playoff berth. But Claudia, it's a tough ask with the Rams being a touchdown home favorite Saturday against Arizona that has already been eliminated.
Hey, there's hope, though, right?
There is hope.
Things are a bit more bleak.
It's the hope that kills you, though.
Things are a bit more bleak for the Bears. They've now lost 9 straight, tied for the second longest streak in franchise history. 5 of those 9 losses by 16 or more points. Their last win came back in Week 6, as Trey mentioned, when they beat the Jags and improved to 4-2 on the season. And that seems like a really, really long time ago, and it sort of was as we head into Week 17. And it's shocking, I know, but firing the head coach didn't seem to help this team. Since Thomas Brown took over for Matt Eberflus 3 weeks ago, they've been getting their doors blown off. They've scored under 20 points, and they've allowed over 30 in all 3 games. Overall, during the 9-game losing streak, the Bears' defense ranks last in the NFL in yards per game, passing yards per game, and yards per play, Trey.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. We get so focused and enamored on Caleb Williams as the rookie quarterback, but the Bears' defense is not doing anything to help out the cause of their young rookie QB. All right, for more on the Bears, for lack of a better term, ineptitude, let's head out to Chicago where we find our Emerson Lazio. Emerson, hope your holiday was well.
Hello.
Glad you're with us and glad you're in Chicago. And it's really interesting, right?
It was great.
We hear coaches say this all the time. We just need one play to turn it around. But that can also go the other way. Since the Bears gave up that game-clinching Hail Mary to the Commanders, it's been an abject disaster ever since, and they can't get out of their own way to start games.
Yeah, I'll take that one step further. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where this team had a head coach, Matt Eberflus, so maybe they didn't have a head coach. But since he was fired on Black Friday, guess what, Trey? This team has averaged 14 points an outing on offense. And during that 3-game stretch, how about this? They've been outscored 60-14, 6-0-14. You're not going to win a lot of games playing like that, which is why the Bears have not been winning a lot of games, because they've been playing like that. So who or what is to blame, okay, for these slow starts? And for that, I'm going to toss it to the guys who actually play games for the Bears, the players, and their interim coach.
No, I would say the entire offense is the reason for the slow starts. So I think it's not just one position or one person. Unfortunately, at times, guys have taken turns, not doing things properly, not being detailed enough. Obviously, penalties haven't always been the biggest issue, but of late have been the issue.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's not being good enough, not making enough plays, way too many penalties, too many turnovers. Just got to find a way to eliminate those things.
I feel like I've been asked that week in and week out, and we just haven't been able to fix it. So, you can look at it seems like a different thing every week, and I think today was some penalties and turnovers and some mental mistakes, and that's where we're at.
These fumbles that I've had for 2 to 3 weeks now, I think turnovers are, they're obviously a part of the game, but trying to eliminate those only helps our chances of winning.
Yeah, those turnovers, again, a big reason why they've been outscored in the first half the last 3 games, 60-14. But at least Caleb Williams is in the Christmas spirit, rocking the Santa hat. I got to give him credit for the commitment there. Got to give him credit for 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions since week 12. But how about this? He's tied with my guy, Trevor Lawrence, longest losing streak by a #1 overall quarterback in his rookie campaign. Trey and Claudia, I have questions for you guys. Have you ever sent a text that maybe you regret immediately, or maybe a few hours, days, or months down the road?
Seconds after.
Never. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Never.
Yeah, I'm with you, Claudia. That never happens to me. So
Liars.
if you guys and gals remember, during the draft in April, the Bears took a punter in the 4th round. Yeah, they went all Jaguars on us and took a punter in the 4th round. Caleb texted him, hey, you're not going to punt too much around here. Turns out that Torrey Taylor is punting a lot. He's top 4 in the league in punts, and he actually has more punting yards than Caleb Williams has passing yards. He left Caleb on red when Caleb sent him that text, so we decided to bounce around the city today and have Bears fans, Seahawks fans, there's a Packers fan in there, I think a Colts fan as well, and they drafted their own replies to that Caleb text. So I need everyone to hang out watching now. We will be back wandering around the Windy City, and it is really good stuff.
Yeah, that was one. What's the old Ron Burgundy line? I immediately regret this decision is exactly what happened there. All right, Emerson, thanks. We'll check back with you a little bit later on in the show for that report. So the injuries are also a huge deal here. Taking a look at some other things, too, here for the playoff picture. Here's how the playoff picture in the NFC looks entering the game. As we've said, the only path for Seattle is to overtake the Rams and win the division. The Bears are the only team in the NFC North to not be in a playoff spot, as all 3 teams in that division have already clinched. With wins by the Lions and Vikings this week, the NFC North would be the first division in NFL history with 2 14-win teams, and Minnesota plays Green Bay on Sunday, so this could be a big one. I think, Claudia, you can't overemphasize. Not only do we have the possibility of 2 14-win teams in the same division for the first time, if the Packers win out, we literally could have 3 13-win teams in a single division for the first time. That's just nuts.
It is insane when we're looking at the top of the league right now, but I sort of like it. The parity at the top, I'll take it. You're either really good or you're really bad, apparently, in 2024. Let's take a look at some of those injuries that you mentioned, Trey. Seahawks relatively healthy, except for one big one. In and out of the lineup we've seen this season, Kenneth Walker III. He was ruled out with an ankle that he got last week in the loss to the Vikings. The Bears will be dealing dealing with 2 new starters on the left side of their O-line. Left guard Tevin Jenkins out with a calf. Left tackle Braxton Jones heading to IR after injuring his ankle in last week's loss to the Lions. Trey.
All right, for more on this game, let's break it down with our offensive lineman. You know him and love him. 11 years in the league. Marshall Newhouse joins us. Marshall, they've tried coaching changes. They've tried play calling changes. When you watch the Bears, what is the one thing that sticks out to you that says, oh, yeah, this is why they've lost 9 straight?
Yeah, I think it's a simple thing, but it's something that takes a long time to develop, and that's just talent. They're not very talented right now. That starts at the top with Kevin Warren, McCaskey's, and Ryan Poles on down. But if we're talking about Caleb Williams and his progression as a rookie and what we think he will be, it helps to surround that guy that you think is your franchise with talent. And starting on the offensive line, they have done a poor job of that. Now, they had a defense last year that we thought would be formidable. That's why everyone was anointing them a contender this year, potentially, if Caleb just played at some very standard level. But it turns out from a lack of development, guys leaving for agency, and just Eberflus's system, I imagine, not taking hold, they have a lack of talent and execution in that locker room. And to me, that's a top-down thing.
Yeah, Marshall, we were joking off camera when all the players were talking about their issues. It was a very long list, and it seems like they could have
penalties, execution, play
for
call.
a while. Exactly. So I think really the question comes down to how much of this is Caleb Williams' fault, right? Because he came into the season as the #1 overall pick. He's texting the kicker, you don't have to worry about it. I got this. I have the players around me, right? We talked about the roster that he had. And of course, he wasn't dealt the best hand, losing his head coach, some issues with the offense. I understand all of that. But to go from rookie of the year favorite, a heavy favorite, to now plus 50,000, he's not even a thought to win this thing. What happened here, and how much of it is Caleb Williams' fault, Marshall?
I think there's a reasonable amount that's his fault, but also he had ebbs and he had lows. That's what a rookie quarterback does. I think we've lost the plot on expecting these guys to be perfect right away. He has some flaws. I think they're all fixable flaws. I think there are people trying to redraft, which we do every year, but the season's not even done. They're trying to redraft the first round as if he was some kind of mistake. I think he's going to go on to have a really successful career if the Bears surround him with people who can help him win. For instance, at this last game against Detroit, yes, they got blown out. We've talked about that already. But when he was kept clean, he threw for 2 touchdowns, and that adds to the other touchdowns from the 2 previous games after Eberflus was fired. No interceptions. When he's clean, shocker, he can play really good football. And so he's going to continue to get better, hopefully with a good coach, specifically a quarterback-minded coach who's going to mentor him and teach him how to play within the system, know when things unfold, a la Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Pat Mahomes. Then you go be special, but you can't be special every play. You can't force that specialty every play. He's a guy who has it all in front of him, but when you don't have time in the pocket, I mean, even this past game, he had a 2.5 time to throw. That is with the clean pocket. He knows how to get rid of the ball. He's just under duress his entire season. So they've got to find a way to get him some clean looks and some clean mentally preparation from a coach.
Yeah, you look at his numbers with Jaden Daniels, they're not that far off except in the QBR department. Then there's Gino Smith. We loved that story a couple of years ago. But this Seattle team has just been hovering around 500. Why haven't they gotten over the hump yet?
I think it's a combination of their defense has taken a while to come along. Mike McDonald's system, I think is a little bit more complex coming from Baltimore. They do a lot of different pressure packages. There's a lot of vernacular in that system, but that defense has been improving. But ultimately on Gino, the things we could put on him are he's turning the ball over in untimely manners in the red zone in critical situations. All the other times, the pressure is on the offensive line. I think John Schneider's done not a great job at cementing this offensive line unit as one that's a strength that can help a guy like Gino, who we've seen now in this resurgence, can absolutely help you win. But again, they're going to hover around 500. Their their offensive line in both run and pass blocking is bottom 3rd in the league. And until they fix that, then they won't allow Gino to be his full self and the offense to be his full self, to then play a complementary role with this defense, which Mike McDonald is a specialist.
Well, he's facing a pretty struggling defense tonight, so we'll see how he does. Marshall Newhouse, we'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, Marshall, thanks. Coming up, Seattle's 1-2 punch at wideout has been giving defenders problems all year, and they may both be looking for big games tonight against that Bears defense, which has been struggling. We'll get to that when the pregame power-up continues. Stay with us. We are just getting started, getting you ready for the Seahawks and the Bears. Well, we alluded to this at the top of the show. It's a Thursday, and Gino Smith is playing quarterback. That has not been a good combination for Gino Smith. He's 0-6 as a starting quarterback on this day, tied with who else but Daniel Jones for the worst winning percentage of any starting quarterback with at least 6 starts on Thursday Night Football. Seattle's also 0-3 in primetime this season, with losses to the Lions, the Niners, and the Packers. But as we continue here in the pregame power-up presented by DraftKings or on DraftKings Network, those are much better teams than the Bears team that Gino and the Seahawks are facing tonight. And we have found good news. This game is not in Seattle. Why does that make sense? 5-1 straight up on the road this season, the Seahawks are. 4-1-1 against the spread, 4-2 to the over. And oh, by the way, they're scoring about 8 more points per game on the road, which has led to more of those games going to the over, as I said. And Gino Smith has been different when taking care of the ball, especially when it comes to turnovers. Only 2 picks on the road compared to 13 at home this season, including that one last week against Minnesota that really clinched the win for the Vikings. Turnovers have been a problem all season long for Gino, really his entire career. He's thrown 3 in his last 2 games, and his 15 on the season are tied for the second most in the NFL with Baker Mayfield and behind only the now not starting Kirk Cousins. Heading into tonight, he'll also have to contend with a knee injury he suffered in Seattle's Week 15 loss to the Packers. Smith is good to go, but admitted he's not exactly 100%.
Is the knee thing behind you at this point?
No, it's not. I mean, it's going to be there for a while, but, got to keep pushing.
Everybody wants to talk about the interceptions, and rightfully so. And those are things that we're working through. But, I mean, one of the reasons that we're here with life, like I said last night, is I really felt that Gino's helped put us in this position. So.
Well, see, that's really good coaching, because what Mike Macdonald there is saying is not just about to the media. He's talking to his players through the media, saying, hey, we still believe in you, Gino Smith. And Gino has had inconsistency this season, and it shows up in the numbers. Entering Week 17, he ranks 3rd in passing yards behind Joe Burrow and Jared Goff, but he's 19th in passing touchdowns, sandwiched between Kirk Cousins, who's now benched, and Brock Purdy. We mentioned Smith's 15 picks, second most behind Cousins, 16, and 3rd in sacks taken with 45, Claudia tied with Sam Darnold.
All right, Trey, let's take a deeper dive with Next Gen Stats, taking a look at how Seattle may attack the Chicago defense tonight. It all starts with Gino Smith, who has found a lot of success against zone coverage this season, completing almost 74% of his passes, which is the 5th highest rate in the NFL. Now, this is a good matchup because the Bears use zone coverage on almost 80% of dropbacks this season, which is the 4th highest, although they have been very effective, allowing the 2nd lowest completion percentage. So one way they may try to get around this is with the deep ball. They do have the matchup advantage according to Next Gen Stats, 4 out of 5 stars for the Seahawks offense when looking downfield. And when they do that, they often look to DK Metcalf. And since returning from that knee injury in Week 11, he is one of these top 5 guys in deep routes, but look who's right there with him, JSN. So certainly a few good options downfield for Gino Smith. But not just that, they also have Zach Charbonnet out of the backfield, who has stepped up and been very effective with Kenneth Walker out with injury. This season as a starter in 4 games, averaging 19.5 touches a game, over 100 total yards and 6 touchdowns. So all hands on deck effort tonight when it comes to the Seattle offense, trying to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, you know, there may be a 10-year age gap, but these two guys are both getting it done for their respective teams. Jackson Smith and Jigba and Keenan Allen are coming off really big performances in Week 16. Both led their team in receiving yards and found the end zone. JSN has actually had back-to-back games with 12 targets, while Allen has had 13 targets in each of his last 2, Claudia, after a really slow start in Chicago for him.
Yeah, lots of options for Gino Smith in the passing game. Let's talk about this 22-year-old wide receiver in JSN. 95-yard performance last week put him up over 1,000 receiving yards. For the first time in his career, he now has 7 straight games going over 70 receiving yards, and that is the 2nd longest streak in Seattle history, behind an 8-game streak by Steve Largent. Trey?
Yeah, for Keenan Allen, his 141 yards last week were a season high for him. He also scored his 7th receiving touchdown of the season, which also leads the Bears. It was his 5th in his last 5 games, so we're finally getting that consistency that they thought they were going to get from Slayer when they made the trade from the Chargers to get him. The 32-year-old needs 2 more receiving touchdowns to set a new career high, and Allen has gone over 70 yards in 4 of Chicago's last 5 games, Claudia.
Let's take a look at those two guys when it comes to the prop lines tonight. The market has them sort of similar. JSN has receptions just 1 over him, 6.5 to 5.5. Receiving yards boosted up a bit. Anytime touchdown, though, you're getting real good value on both of these guys. So all of these, of course, you can go and bet at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And I do want to say one thing about this Seahawks offense. I talked about it with the Next Gen Stats and how effective they've been against zone coverage and with that deep ball. But it's also interesting to see Gino Smith also has the 3rd most checkdowns of all quarterbacks in the NFL. So they're able to work this offense in so many ways. 3rd most, highest passing play percentage. So they are very heavily reliant on the passing game, but they also have so much talent out of the backfield in a Zach Charbonnet. So the more I look into this game, you can sort of cherry pick, stats of this Bears defense, top 5 pressure rate, but then we list all of the bad parts of it. So I think that there's a big edge for the Seahawks offense the more that I look at it, and I don't know if 4 is enough, Trey.
Well, look, one of the things that you had the numbers at the top of the show about how bad this Bears defense has been through this 9-game losing streak. 6.5 yards per play. 6.5 yards per play, which again is one of those numbers along with total yards per game and passing yards per game that has been the worst in the NFL through this 9-game losing streak. Entering Week 17, obviously the stats with what happened with the 2 games on Christmas may have skewed that a little bit. But you can't survive giving up 6.5 yards per play.
Exactly.
There's just no way.
Which is why I'm saying the 4 points doesn't feel like enough. So let's talk about how people are betting this game with this line now, I guess, up to 5.
Yeah.
We're seeing about 78% of the handle. So the money, the sharps on the Seahawks to cover 80% of the bets. We're seeing some over money as well as bets. As far as a prop goes, I just talked about Charbonnet out of that backfield. His line set at 69.5. So he needs 70 or more. Look at all of that money coming in, 98% of the handle and 94% of the bets. For more on the action that the DraftKings Sportsbook has taken on this game, here's our anonymous sportsbook informant, Captain Book.
Waiting, watching the clock, it's 9 straight L's. It's got to stop. Tell Caleb, take no more. So he practices his plays. As he opens his book, fans bet over. We pretend to care as we lower the total. Bet on Chicago. There's no one else who needs to know. We tell ourselves. Memories back when the Bears were on the clock and waiting for the QB to come along. Fans swear they bet him. Now that action is gone. Bears lie and say they're in love with him. They can't find a quarterback. Seattle dreams in green, Chicago is seeing red. Bears still need a quarterback. Fans lie and say they love him. They can't find a quarterback. Book needs the Bears, not the Hawks again. If only Chicago had their first pick back.
All right, that was a little subtle, but if you didn't get it, because Captain Book always has this theme he likes to play.
Yes, yeah.
That was the song by Pearl Jam, Better Man, or Bet Tour Man. See what he did there? Listen, this is very complex. This is nuanced. There are layers to Captain Book, okay? He's like an onion. You got to peel him back.
Bravo.
Ogres, onions, and Captain Book. You've got to undo the layers to find out exactly what he's talking about. You know who doesn't care about any of that? Mike Pritchard.
Yeah, I don't know if
Mike doesn't care about any of that. So let's go to the VSiN trading floor in Las Vegas and figure out what's going on with Mike. Mike, let's talk about one of these young wide receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I loved him when he came out of Ohio State. And he's finally sort of fulfilling that promise this season. As a former wideout, what do you like most about his game?
Oh, everything, Trey. I mean, this guy, his route running, his quickness, his decisiveness, certainly the ability to catch the ball in traffic too, because he's normally between the hash marks, right? Sometimes he'll get deep, but he's got that capability if he is on the outside. But he's an all-around great player. When he was at Ohio State, think about this. They had Olave and Wilson, and a lot of people thought that Smith and Jigba was better than those two guys when he lit up Utah in that bowl game. So he is just shining at the right time. I think DK and Lockett in front of him kind of held him back year one, but year two, he's coming to the surface for sure.
I want to stick with the wide receiver conversation and head over to the Chicago roster. And we've said it a million times when talking about Caleb Williams. He was coming into one of the better situations we've seen over the last few years. Of course, they already had DJ Moore. They bring in Keenan Allen, and they go draft an awesome star in Rome Odunze. Yet they haven't found success in the passing game. Why is that, Mike?
60 sacks? And how many play calls are they on right now? I mean, right, seriously. No, this is the thing about Chicago. They're a bad organization. You have to marry a play caller with the quarterback that you select number one. Like you had Justin Fields, you had Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, you didn't really marry a play caller. Nagy had some success there for a brief time, but you have to marry a play caller to your quarterback. And you think about the legendary quarterbacks of our league, and when they found success. I mean, Steve Young in Tampa, he stunk, right?
Yeah.
But you go to San Francisco, and he's a Hall of Famer. Same thing with Jaden Daniels now out in Washington. He's got Cliff Kingsbury, who understands what type of system, what type of quarterback he was in college. You know, I'm going to make that familiar to you in the National Football League and let you be confident out there. Right now, Caleb has zero confidence, if any. I mean, he's trying. He really is, but it's hard to have confidence when you're sacked 60 times, as well as all the pressures that he faces each and every game day.
Yeah, he needs to give David Carr a hug, who got sacked 77 times his rookie year for the Houston Texans. But you're right, Pritch, about marrying a play caller with a quarterback. The last 3 times the Bears have taken a quarterback in the first round, their coach was either fired after 1 year or this year didn't even make it through the season. So that's a real problem. And then there's the mental part of this, like you talked about it, confidence. They have lost 9 straight since they thought they'd won that game against the Commanders. The Hail Mary hangover, that's a real thing. Can you explain how a player has to deal with that when you thought it was all going to go our way and then it's been downhill since that play?
Right, you're embarrassed, certainly, Trey. I think as a player, that's one of the things that you first think of. And then secondly, you start to get scared. You start to get scared that they're going to replace you. And certainly they fire a coach, and now you're even more scared. How do you motivate a professional athlete? You scare them. You're supposed to, but not in this way. I think these guys are playing with a reluctancy, like to just let it flow and let it come natural to them. Everybody's playing tight because everybody's looking over their shoulder right now at this point as you fire the defensive coordinator and the defense gets worse, right? So it's just from the top down, a bad organization, and the players feel that in the locker room.
Pritch, you know I'm always going to ask you about the dog in this spot, up to 5 points now. But nobody's biting it, really. Every ball the money's coming in, all the bets coming in on the Seahawks. Is 5 enough for the Chicago squad to keep it close and cover?
Claudia, I am a dog player, but I'm a good dog player. I mean, this team, I just talked about how bad of an organization they are, but I can't chase it either, though. I mean, it seems like I would be chasing that number if I were to lay it with the Seahawks. I do like the Hawks in this game, but from an in-game perspective, if I get a surprise out of Chicago, right, maybe I can get a better situation in-game back in the Seahawks.
All right, so let's talk about the total then. What is it, 44, I think it is for this game? We just talked about historically how bad this Bears defense has been through their 9-game losing streak. So we expect enough out of Seattle to put that number in play. Will we get anything out of Chicago to make that thing interesting?
Well, there is a variance right there, Trey. I mean, I think, you know, if it's Thursday night, it's prime time, everybody's watching. I mean, everybody's watching because of Christmas and the holiday. So maybe you get the guys to step up a little bit, and they do let it flow out there if you're Chicago for a chance. But the trends have suggested in Thursday Night Football to play the overs, right? I think Seattle can run the football against Chicago. They know that. I think they're more comfortable throwing it, certainly with Gino away from Seattle on the road here. So I'm reluctantly going to play the over because everything in me says to play the under at this point, but the trends and everything else is suggesting to play the over.
Pritch, go Seahawks team total. Let's stay away from trying to trust the Bears, right? Seahawks team total.
We can. Yes, I need to follow you on social media so I can know when to do that, certainly. But in game, look for me in game. I'm going to participate in game, I believe, depending on the situation.
There's the shout out.
We got each other.
Put out your handles now.
At the Bellafotto TV. Come on, people. Pritch, we appreciate you. Coming up, the text that Caleb Williams probably wants to have back. Emerson Latia in Chicago. He's got the receipts. We'll bring that to you next on the Pregame Power Up.
here, but we're not winning. So I mean, obviously kudos to him. He's still a rookie, he's still learning, he's still growing. But at the end of the day, it's just frustrating because we're not winning. So.
Well, Kevin, the numbers overall aren't too bad for Caleb. 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions as a rookie. But as he just said, that stat that matters is wins, and Caleb hasn't had one of those since week 6. Although he does have 10 touchdowns and no interceptions during the losing streak. Except the streak is the second longest in NFL history by #1 overall quarterback, tied with Trevor Lawrence, as Emerson told us. Troy Aikman holds the record right now, losing 11 games with the Cowboys in 1989. Let's take a look at the rookie roller coaster that has been for Caleb Williams. The bad, 9 losses in which he hasn't thrown an interception, the most such losses in a single season since 1950. As Pritchard said, he's been sacked 60 times this season, which is a Bears franchise record, the 3rd most by a rookie in NFL history. But how about the good? He set a rookie quarterback record for the most passes without an interception, and he has 4 games with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, tied with Mitch Trubisky for the most in a single Bears season over the last 20 years. So, Trey, there is some good in there.
There's some big Mitch energy there. There's no question about it. So it was a season that started with so much hope for these Bears fans at 4-2. Also a season that started with that ominous text message that Emerson alluded to. And we will no longer allude to it. We will lay it out for you in its raw, unvarnished, naked truth. Here's Emerson with the text that went around Chicago.
When he texted the punter that he's not going to punt too much here, and then turns out he has punted a lot.
Quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. I was actually at the game this last week, so I watched him punt a few times.
Do you remember this text that he sent his punter?
Yeah, I see it every week.
You see it every week?
That might have popped up on my phone. Yep.
He has probably had to eat a little crow,
Hey, you're not going to punt too much here.
I think he kind of regrets that.
Well, he lied about that one.
You've never sent any texts that you regret the next day, right?
Never.
I noticed the accent. Where are you from originally?
Australia, Melbourne.
Is the Bears punter from that neck of the woods as well?
Yes, Tory. He's from Australia.
Tory Taylor.
Yep. He's an Aussie.
He has more punting yards than Caleb Williams has passing yards.
Is that true?
That is very true.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Turns out he's punted quite a bit. How do you feel about this text now?
I feel good because my English is so bad. I don't understand, but I agree. I agree.
Ask me if I know who Caleb Williams is.
Oh, that's the quarterback of the Bears.
Yeah, but see, he's not relevant enough for me to know that. That's the problem.
Tory left him on red when he sent him this text, and now is your opportunity to write a text back. My leg is sore. What message would you send him back? $1 for every punt yard. Right now, you know how much that would be? $3,330.
I would take it.
Yeah,
Why not?
Yeah, me too. And then go use it on DK Sportsbook. Too bad you suck. I need a bonus.
Yeah. Caleb Williams got paid. Hey, he got to give a little.
You lied to me, Caleb.
You lied to me, Caleb. He's doing a whole lot of punting.
Who needs me now?
Right. Who needs me now?
How's that going?
Not great, Bob. Not great.
You're not going to be on offense much.
The eggplant emoji.
Oh my God, dude. I knew I loved you. What would you like to write?
Lock it in.
Lock it in. Simple, to the point. You're too damn nice.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy.
You really are. Come here.
That was great. I loved that.
That's the perfect ending to that from Seattle. Yeah, I'm just, whatever. I don't want to cause any problems.
But also,
I just want to drink my coffee and listen to grunge music.
You had to know sending that text.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, with all due respect, Brian Poles, when he was hired as the general manager, said, we're going to take the North and never give it back. Now, to be fair to Ryan, he didn't say when that was happening. It might be in 10 years, but he probably won't be involved if this continues the way it's going. So
no.
Caleb was just following up on the lead that Ryan Poles, the general manager, had put out there to begin with. Speaking of putting something out there, Claudia, get used to it. Deal with the reality, because what we saw on Christmas Day is inevitable. That train's coming down the track, baby, and you saw it in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day.
Man.
Chiefs just went in there and punched the Steelers in the mouth on Christmas Day. 29-10. They're 15-1 on the season and have clinched home field through the AFC, locked up through the playoffs. They can rest up as many of the players as they won in Week 18. Although if they win next week, they would join the 2007 Patriots as the only 16-win teams in NFL history. I don't think they give a you-know-what about that, because they all know how the 2007 season ended for the Patriots, losing Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
Mahomes has been a number one seed 3 times in his career, 2 times making it to the Super Bowl and winning it once in 2022, a couple years ago. The other time he won a Super Bowl as a 2 seed and last year as a 3 seed, which is basically his way of saying, I can do it any way you want. Yeah. This year's team has at times not been that impressive as in years past, but 15 is 15, baby. And after the win yesterday, they celebrated in style.
For the present, you get home field advantage, my man.
Yes, sir!
That's just fantastic.
You think they're having fun?
I think they're good, yeah. So with 29 points yesterday, Kansas City still hasn't scored more than 30 in any game this season. They only reached 33 times in the year, but have yet to get over it. It's the most wins in NFL history, scoring 30 points or less for the season. For context, they went over 33 times in their Super Bowl run last season and 5 times in the year prior. But some of this has to be taken into consideration of game situation, right? Like in the Saturday win over the Texans, Kareem Hunt could have scored on that final play, and he just sat down to run out the clock. Yeah. And they had a missed extra point because of a taunting penalty on Xavier Worthy, and they missed a 2-point conversion. That puts them at 31. So, again, I don't think they give a you-know-what about any of that.
I don't think they care either. And also, look at what Patrick Mahomes has done against this Steelers squad. Heading into that game, the line was only 2.5, and I said, is this right? 17 touchdowns to 1 interception, 4-0 against the Steelers.
Yeah, and in his last 9 games, 19 total touchdowns and only 2 interceptions in 6 straight
not
games.
Fair, Trey.
What's the old line from Breaking Bad? He can't keep getting away with it.
Seriously.
Yet they do. For more on this, let's go back to Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, to go old 30 for 30 at my old appointment. What if I told you that Chris Jones wouldn't play, they'd tie a season high for 5 sacks, that they'd have Patrick Mahomes throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns for the first time all season? Listen, this is the inevitability. They've got their full roster back. It's Pacheco, it's Hunt, it's Hollywood Brown, it's Worthy. Kelsey, I was supposedly told, was washed. He had 8 catches, 64 yards, a touchdown. He's got 97 on the season. People need to understand the Chiefs are right now the best team they've been all year, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing what only champions do, which is peak at the right time. All those moments in September and October and November where they didn't look their best, but they won by 2 points, and somehow that was a bad thing. Or they won by 3 points and had to come back and win. And yeah, their stats weren't as great as in the past, but they were dealing with their own injuries, and they've known from the beginning who they are, and they're peaking at the right time. As you mentioned, Travis Kelce, who we were like, where has he been all year? 8 catches, 84 yards, showing right back up. Now he's faking laterals, so now teams have to worry about him lateraling down the field. They're just doing things on a different level. And, listen, they get home field advantage. They are 6-1 against the other playoff teams in the AFC. So everything that they have planned on that a lot of people just forgot about is right in front of them. And now they get to go and do it at home where Patrick gets to have his own cadence. Other teams have to worry about the noise and the cold in Kansas City, and everything is right there set up for them to make a run.
I was going to say, and they're 8-0 at home. And I know I always like to poke fun just because I'm a Patriots fan, right? It was nice when we were winning.
You remember this.
But now that the Chiefs are taking over, as you know well, Marshall. Talk to me, though, about that home field advantage, because that's all that we talk about in the media. But as a player, what difference does it really make? And what about Arrowhead in particular, do you think?
Well, especially in the playoffs when everything is ratcheted up, the mistakes are bigger, the stakes are bigger. Not having to travel, getting to sleep in your own bed, practice all week in your environment, and depending on what the weather will be that week, you get to be outside in it, preferably getting a little bit of a taste of it, and then ultimately communication. If the noise in a regular season game in Arrowhead is already at whatever the decibels, 112 or whatever, it's going to be an extra 10 in the playoffs. And so Pat didn't have to deal with that. So now they get to do their mind meld, hand signals and mind signals on offense. The defense gets to watch as the offensive line tries to communicate, and they wonder where Chris Jones is going. Is he going to go against the offensive tackle? He's going to line up against the center and make the center look foolish. And so now, and Steve Spagnuolo gets to now dial up his blitzes, get guys in the right situations, hide his looks. And so everything is another level of comfortability. That does not guarantee anything. I remember being in the Packers in 2011. We went 15-1, got a first-round bye, and we ended up dropping many, many balls, fumbling multiple times. Aaron Rodgers did not play his best football, and we got beat. So by any means, it's not a guarantee, but it is so much nicer to not have to travel and be comfortable in your own situation with the biggest games on the line.
The Chiefs are 15-3 in the postseason with Patrick Mahomes under center. 2 of those losses were to a guy who's now calling games for Fox for $37.5 million. Lamar Jackson, look, he's still in the MVP race after this performance against the Texans. But I think we need to really appreciate what he did on Christmas Day. He's 27 years old, Marshall, and he's already the biggest rushing quarterback in the history of the NFL. He's going to bury this record. He's 27, and no quarterback has rushed for more yards in the history of the NFL than this guy.
We just do a bad job of recognizing and highlighting outliers. Outliers per generation. And everyone can be a generational quarterback, but there are some guys who will stand the test of time with what they do and how it's different than everyone. Not to mention all the people that said Lamar Jackson should play a wide receiver. Not to mention when there's a potential he could be for agency and owners like Arthur Blank said that he's not going to hold up. He's a guy who runs and uses legs but does not take big hits. And he's gotten progressively better at his passing game every season he's been in the NFL. You give him an offensive line and a run game and an opportunistic defense, and he can beat you on any given Sunday. And so he's doing incredible things. It's unfortunate that there's only one MVP trophy. I think it's a toss-up. I have Josh Allen in the lead, but he is just as deserving as anyone. And listen, he's going to be judged if he can finally get them over the hump to get a Super Bowl, but we cannot lose sight of how special Lamar Jackson is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Josh Allen is the favorite. We just showed you at the very bottom of that board, Joe Burrow sneaks his way in. And we're not really talking about Joe Burrow, but we should. 7 straight games now with 3 or more passing touchdowns. He is having an MVP-like season. Of course, the team not necessarily playing up to par, but let's talk about their playoff hopes because it is still alive, Marshall. They got to win their last 2 against Denver and Pittsburgh. The Broncos need to lose their last 2. Dolphins and Colts both get 1 loss. And the Bengals get in. And right now at the DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 750. You can bet them and cash out if they do make the playoffs. How likely is it they get that done, Marshall? And everything else around them happens to get them in.
Listen, there's not a team, if they're being honest, that wants to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs.
Correct.
But specifically, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. This defense is still what it is. It's been this way all season. They don't scare you on that front like they did when they beat Kansas City a few years back. They're just not as formidable. They're not as opportunistic. They're not as solid as they need to be. There's a reason Joe Burrow's not in the MVP conversation for real because he doesn't have a defense getting his team in contention. If they make this run, I don't think anyone wants to see them on offense. I just don't know if they can put a whole game together and beat a serious contending team.
Which is why the Chiefs can play chess and not play anybody against the Broncos and kick them out of the postseason doing it that way. Marshall, thanks very much. We've talked a lot about the Bears' losing streak. Will they try and end it tonight? And what about a wild streak that's been on finally come to an end? We'll have that all.
on the pregame power-up with Next Gen Cats. First touchdown score. Let's see who he likes. JSN plus 950. That feels like good value.
I like that.
All right, kitty cat. Let's see. Oh, he went right in.
Swift.
Right in for it. No hesitation.
He was swift, picking Swift.
He was swift. Let's take a look at how the humans are betting tonight. Zach Charbonnet has scored at least one touchdown in each of his last 5 appearances with Kenneth Walker out. Keenan Allen has scored at least one touchdown in 4 of the Bears' last 5 games. DK Metcalf has scored a touchdown in 4 of the Seahawks' last 5 games as road favorites. And as you can see, pretty good value in all of them. Got to drink a little bit of juice, though, on Zach Charbonnet. Trey.
All right, you know how we do this, Claudia. We have so much information, and this is a well-produced, tightly packed 60-minute show. We can't get it all in, so we have this thing we do at the end of the show called the data dump, where we throw out everything we have left in the bag. The dog days are over for Seattle. Seahawks streak of 10 consecutive games as underdogs will come to an end tonight. They were last favored in a game back in Week 5 against the Giants. The Seahawks were in a class of their own, being above 500 straight up at the end of a 10-game underdog streak. First team in the wild card era since 1990 to pull that off.
I know we gave you guys a lot of bad news about Caleb Williams and the Bears, but we have more. Thursdays have not been kind to rookie quarterbacks. They are 18-34 straight up since 2000, including 1-4 this season and 7-14 since 2018, Trey.
All right, but it hasn't been good news for teams after they faced the Lions. That part of this is real. Chicago lost to Detroit in a Week 16 matchup, and teams facing the Lions are now 6-8 straight up and 3-11 against the spread this season, failing to cover by almost 9 points per. Over the last 3 seasons, teams are 17-30 against the spread.
So even more bad things for the Bears, but wait! There's more. In 14 of the Bears' last 15 games, their opponents have scored first. The road team has covered the spread in 10 of the Seahawks' last 11 games, and 11 of the Bears' last 15 games as underdogs have gone under the total.
All right, I think something you said with Pritch was a really interesting way to look at this game. And go for this because we've talked, what was the total, 44? Was it 44 or 42?
Yeah, and I got to check the team total. I believe it's 44. Let me check that, though.
So
42.
It's 42.
I lied.
It's 42. It's all right. You didn't lie.
I lied.
You
Straight
misremembered. Okay, you just misremembered. So the idea of what you said, I think, is really fascinating because when you look at how bad this Bears defense has been, you say to yourself, okay, if I'm going to look for a little action on this game besides the outcome, the best way to do it would be taking those defensive numbers that have been so bad for the Bears and applying that to the Seahawks, and maybe I take their team total, which is?
And I'm trying to find it. And producer Matt, I would love if you told me because DraftKings has a lot of markets here. Yeah. It's tough to find. I'm assuming it's going to be cut it at half and some.
Yeah.
He'll tell me.
Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah.
Seahawks team total is the play. Like I said, too, you can look at this Bears defense and say they do have some talent on the D-line. They are top 5 in pressure rate. All of these things are great. But Gino, like I said, knows how to move this ball around. He has his healthy receivers. And Zach Charbonnet out of the backfield, in some ways, has actually been a little bit sharper than Kenneth Walker III. So while he's been out, it hasn't really mattered because they're moving the ball regardless.
Absolutely.
21.5.
21.5.
There we go.
21.5.
And I would easily go with
Absolutely go with that. And oh, by the way, just want to throw this out here. You know, LeBron did a post-game interview after the Lakers Christmas Day game and said, look, I love the NBA. I love the NFL, but we own Christmas. LeBron, math suggests otherwise. They just released the numbers. Those streams on Netflix, 65 million U.S. viewers, over 24 million for each game. And then the Beyonce halftime show went over 27 million. I'm pretty certain if you added up all the NBA games played on Christmas Day, it wouldn't touch 24 million.
Oh, numbers are down.
Cute for you, cute, and I respect that you're respecting the league, but the NFL posterized the NBA. Dunk you very much with Netflix dominating with those 2 games. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see what happens. We'll be back here on Monday. For Claudia, Emerson, Marshall, Pritch, everybody, have a great Thursday night. Enjoy the game, and we will see you again Monday right here on the Pregame PowerUp. Trey, Wingo, Claudia, Bellafotto.